Welcome to the third episode of Boldcast, and apologies for having it on a Sunday. We experienced some technical difficulties yesterday, but we are live and we are here today. My name is Nicholas, but you can call me Nick.
My name is Theo. Technical difficulties meaning Zesco. Zesco. Power cut like the whole day yesterday. So sorry, but at least better late than never.
Yes, indeed. And today we're talking about early marriages and teenage pregnancies. All right. And
Something that I've been, should I call a victim of? A survivor of? These fancy terms that Zambians like to use. Anyway, something that I went through. So something that is quite close to my heart. It's a topic that I like to talk about. It's something that breaks my heart. And to see that even in 2021, things like this keep on happening. And people don't take them seriously, and they affect the girl child, who I'm passionate about. Yeah, so I think this is going to be one of my favorite topics on podcast. Yeah.
all right. And globally, at about 16 million teenage pregnancies occur all around the world, and that makes up about 11% of all pregnancies. And 90% of these happen in middle to low-income countries, and Zambia is one of those countries. And just last year, between January and September, it was recorded about 1,700, over 1,700 pregnancies in just one province, and that's Eastern Province. All right, I can imagine what the number would be for the whole country. One province recorded about 1,768 teenage pregnancies. All right, and that is huge.
Yeah, it's very huge. And well, the province of Chijirano, Eastern Province, is one of the highest, and it has been for the longest time. Eastern Province and Northwestern Province. No, not Northwestern Province, Western Province. So I've heard that, she looked at me because she's from Northwestern. So anyway, I've heard that in Western Province, there's a high number of teenage pregnancies, but not child marriage.
Oh,
Yes, but in Eastern Province, teenage pregnancy and early marriages. Yeah.
all right. And we are here to talk about both early marriages and teenage pregnancies. We'll be looking at the determinants, what causes these things, and we'll also look at some of the effects. And Theo has had a first-hand experience with those effects, the determinants and the effects.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking at your story as well. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start there. Before we get into early marriage, let's look at teenage pregnancy. Seeing that in most cases the teenage pregnancy happens and then leads into early marriage. Let's start there. Some of the effects of some of the determinants rather of teenage pregnancy is lack of information and education.
SRHR information, yeah.
Concerning sexual and sexual health, and another one is poverty. Then another one is social determinants, peer pressure, and yes. And what was it for you? What caused it? What was the determinant for you?
Mine wasn't really poverty. Well, we were not well to do, but I will cite the lack of SRHR information. Because we grew up in a home that, well, we couldn't talk about sex. Maybe that's why I talk about sex so much now, and let people know that it's not a taboo issue. As much as there were so many females, you couldn't talk about your periods freely, you couldn't talk about what happens when you begin your period. It really was the lack of information. I share jokes on how I would go to school and my friends and I would talk about sex, and there were so many myths back in the day. You don't sleep with boys because you get burned. You don't sleep with women because women burn you. These were lies. If a child hits puberty, talk to them. Okay, now this is what has happened. Tell them something like, you are a little woman. Your body will be able to do things that psychologically you can't handle, So stay away. Just give them a proper talk. So I think I didn't get that talk, and most of the information I got was from books, from friends, and it was misinformation, And at a point when I decided to explore, I was trying to deal with finding validation, finding affirmation in people that seemed to offer it, and that's what got me in trouble. There are a lot of factors, really. There were a lot of factors that got me in trouble, but one of them on this show, I would say, was the lack of proper SR/HR information. So I didn't know about contraceptives. I didn't know about I knew that if men and women sleep together, have sex, a baby might come out of it. I was a sharp child, but maybe I was just too young to understand that stuff like this could happen to me. I mean, when I got pregnant and I was told I was pregnant, because I was told I was pregnant, and I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not pregnant. And I started doing sit-ups, like my tummy I noticed my belly growing big, and I just said, nah, I'm just...
Well, what caused that though, the denial?
Yes, I was a child. It's funny, most children that get pregnant are called and said, so you're pregnant, who did this? Most of them will say, no, I'm not. I think at that moment, you're just displaying how much of a child you are. Like, I'm not. You're scared to admit that you're pregnant because you don't know how you're going to deal with it. So when I saw my tummy growing big, when I saw myself for 3 months, missing my period, I was like, I don't know. Then my tummy started getting big. I was like, I'm getting fat. Sit-ups. Every day, sit-ups. Yeah. So it was the lack of proper information for me.
Do you think that's something that's still happening today? The lack of proper information amongst teenagers.
Yes. First of all, we are living in a country that went up in arms with the introduction of SR/HR into our curriculum, our educational curriculum. What people didn't realize then, or what they don't realize, is that I figured that people were just upset over the part where SR/HR teaches children about different orientations, the diversity of people. They did not focus on how SR/HR will actually help boys and girls to understand their bodies, what their bodies will be able to do, what they should not do, how girl children should keep themselves safe, since girl children are emphasized to keep themselves safe, how boy children should not do some things to girl children because the result will be pregnancies and responsibilities that they're not ready for. So I think everybody just overlooked that, and then there was, we don't talk about sex with our children because it's a taboo. This is a Christian nation. It's a Christian nation that has a lot of teenage pregnancies and early child marriages. So where is the balance really?
And also, we're living in an age where if you don't talk to your children about this, they'll read about it on the internet or elsewhere.
And they'll get misinformation. They'll really get a whole lot of misinformation.
They have a high chance of being misinformed out there than with you.
I believe in a phrase, like if you don't teach your child something in the home, or if you don't tell your child something or give them something, if they really want it, they'll get it from somebody else. They can get it from the neighbors, they can get it from school, they can get it from a person on the street, they can get it from their phone. Like, people have a way of getting stuff if they really want to. So I think at the end of the day, at this point, we have to realize that it's our responsibility to teach our own children, Don't be so uptight. They're going to grow. What are you going to do with a child who was misinformed? Would it be better if a child knew now, or 2 years down the line, the child is pregnant and you're like, but I tried everything. No, you didn't. You didn't. You said you can't. You failed to talk to your child about sex. If you fail, well, call their aunt or something. But at the end of the day, that's your child. You should take responsibility. Talk to them yourself. Back then, it was grandmothers who would pass on this information, or aunts. And sometimes I look back at it and I go like, that was wrong. Some of the information that I heard from the older generation that was really uptight was quite wrong. It didn't stop anything. It didn't teach me what I should have known, but I would rather a parent does their own talking to. It's not a taboo. I mean, you had sex to have this child. It's not a taboo. Yeah. All
right. Lack of proper information. That's what caused your situation. But there are also other determinants like poverty and social determinants. How do those come into play?
Poverty is something that I saw back then and something that I still see. I remember an aunt of ours saying how she was so sad that kids were going out with bus drivers, you know, or conductors and whatever. But that really was a mark of poverty for me, because I had friends who would do that, and then, why are you doing this? It's because of, back then 10 kwacha was such a lot of money. It's because of the 10 kwachas or the 50 kwachas, you know. A child needs, our fuse in period poverty here. So I grew up in, like I said, we grew up in a home where we were not well to do. There were a lot of bills, and it's not every time that mom could afford to buy all of us pads. So I grew up in the area where we actually had to improvise, you know. You could use cloths, you could use cotton wool, which I hate to this day, and other methods, you know. So let's say I'm a young lady and I don't want to mess up at school. I don't want to look uncool at school. Here comes a bus driver who likes me, who's showing me validation that I don't get at home. And I really need stuff like pads, powder. Back then, because I was in school when there was the dot of, you get eyebrow pencil and you do the dot here. Yes. So maybe you want a little powder, you want the eyebrow pencil. You don't want to be the one always begging from your friends. Maybe you want to be cool and buy a drink at break. It's little things that your children are out there seeking validation for. Here comes a bus conductor or a bus driver, because these were the huge culprits then. Offers 10 kwacha or whatever. The child is going to end up sleeping with them because he's going to demand that she pays him through sex. That's what happens, you know. Poverty. These are the ones I've just spoken about, are probably the ones here in the towns. We have the ones in the rural areas. Yes, maybe just for food, you know. A child is taken advantage of by an older person who will just offer a little. And it's not a lot of money that these children are offered. It's a lot. It's little, you know. Or maybe just for mealie meal, because her family hasn't eaten, you know. She exchanges her body for that.
And there's been stories of especially in rural areas, where a family gives out their young daughter who's 13, 14, 15 in exchange for lobola, and that sustains them for a month or two, and they willingly just give away this child to be married off, force her into early marriage, just so they can have a little something.
You and I both have spent some time in Luapula. In Luapula is where I got to see children as young as 13 married, and I'm thinking, how is she keeping a whole home? How is she being called a wife? Because even I, who was married off at 17, I was a child. You know, I was a child and I was expected to be a wife, I was expected to be an adult. It's now that I look at my kids, one is 16, one is 18, and I look at them and they are children. There is no way. Even my oldest child, to me, is a child. I look at how she thinks and I'm thinking, this one can't be married, you know? She can't handle the huge responsibility that is marriage. So how are people okay? Is it lack of information? Is it tradition? Like, how are you just okay giving away a child? Because that is a child, basically.
That brings us to the effects of teen pregnancy. You know, like you say, that's a child, and she's handling responsibilities that should be handled by an older person, and that's one of the effects. You know, being robbed of a childhood. You know, being robbed of a life that one should enjoy. You know, do you think that's a real effect of teen pregnancy?
Yes, it is. So do I get into how I was married off now?
Please do.
Okay. So I got pregnant. Very, very young. Very young. I had my first child when I was 16. Then I got pregnant again. Now this is the time that family decided to sit down, have a kangaroo court. I come from a background that believed in kangaroo courts, where you sit and people have to talk about your own life. So there's a whole kangaroo court here, and people are telling my mom, very unlike us, our mom is very, very chilled, like she's very quiet. So people are telling mom on how I'm a wayward child, and no, this is too much, and I need to be, I need to be shown the effects of, or the consequences of, what I've done. That was the moment for me that I felt let down, really, because these were women. There was only one man there. There were only two men there. One was our cousin, and the other was the uncle, and the rest were women. And they sat and they discussed how I should be married off. And I was a child, and in that moment, I really just wanted a voice. Like, okay, I won't do this again. Like, I have learned my lesson. I swear, please. That was the chance that I really just wanted to speak my mind as a child or whatever. In that moment, only one of my sisters spoke up, and she said, "Look, this is a child. Let me take her. I'll send her back to school. I'll take care of her child. But she's a child." And this sister of ours was, what was she then for Comfort? Comfort was some organization.
Campaign for Female Education.
Yes. So then I think she was, I can't remember what she was, but she had a position for Comfort. So I think she understood these things, and the rest didn't. Her voice was swallowed up, and I think the very next day, an aunt from my father's side, someone who didn't contribute a single way to my livelihood, the cousin, who else was there? There was my mom, I can't remember who else. I think there were about 4 adults anyway. Walked me over to this guy's house, and the guy is not there. And I'm just in my tropicals, like a dress. I even remember what I was wearing. I was wearing this white floral dress and a jersey. So they walk me over, we find the guy is not there, and you're a child, you're still a child. Doesn't matter that you're pregnant, you're still a child. So we find the guy is not there, and then we find his brother, who says, "Oh, he's not here." Then they say, "No, we brought her, she's pregnant, blah, blah, blah." And then he says, "Well, he's not here." So they say, "Fine, we'll leave her here." And he says, "I'm not opening the door." He was talking to them through the window. So he says, "I'm not opening the door." So they say, "It's fine, we're going to leave her here." And then they left. And they left me on the veranda. And I'm like, okay. Then he looks at me and he goes back to watching TV, because he was looking at us through the TV room window. He goes back to watching TV. And then I'm just there now, awkward on the veranda, not knowing what to do. What happens next? I've been brought here. What happens next? So I stood by the veranda like a sack of potatoes, or onions, like I like to refer to it. And then this was, I think, around 16, 17. I was there till about 19, when 2 of his sisters said, "It's getting cold, let her come in." And then his brother said, "No, she's going to wait for him outside." And all this time, I'm very confused. I'm like, okay, so now what happens now? What am I supposed to do? Like, what's this? Have I just been, So the guy comes around 21. By then, one of his sisters won the argument, and she offered me a seat in their TV room. And I was cold, I was confused. So that was my first ever day of being married. So the guy comes back around 21, he's been briefed by his relatives that I'm there and whatever. So he says, "Oh, okay." Then he goes on doing his own business, because it's their house, It was a family house. And then his sister comes in and says, "Should I bring you a blanket? Are you sleeping in here?" So I said, "No, I was sleeping in his room." Then she said, "Oh, okay." That was the first night. Early in the morning, right before 6, the sister that offered me a blanket comes and knocks on the door and says, "Oh, you need to wake up. You need to do the dishes, and you need to clean the house. You are the mlamu now." And for me...
Wait, that was said to you? You are the mlam now?
Yes. You are the mlam now, so you need to... And this was a huge house. I grew up in a huge house, but this house was huger.
I remember that.
Yes.
I remember that house, yeah.
So now I just became basically their help. Their pregnant help. And now I'm tending to these people. I have to clean, I have to cook. His other sisters were quite nice. They would help here and there, but eventually they left. But the other one just took it upon herself as traditionally the help that is with the brother. And eventually she left later, and then I was left with him and his brother, and another cousin came. And now here I am, like I'm a 17-year-old, 18-year-old child washing, cooking, cleaning for 3 grown men. Grown men. People will say yes because, well, you were pregnant and you became the wife and whatever. But everything I went through was very confusing. It was something that a child should not go through. It was really being robbed of your childhood or your teenagehood, you know. And I would look at these grown men and think, so this is how it goes. This is marriage, and I didn't like it, you know. I didn't like it because of the taste that I had of it. I really, really didn't like marriage, and I got out of there with a very cynical view towards marriage, towards life, and everything, because my stint there wasn't as pleasant as marriage should be. I'm a big supporter of love. I'm a big supporter of happy marriages. Happy marriages. I'm not just a supporter of any marriage. Your marriage should be happy.
How old were you when you were left at that veranda like a sack of potatoes, in your words?
I was 17.
Wow, that's quite young. I remember that day like yesterday though.
Oh, nice. To this day, I always say, if you had been an older sibling, I know you would have protected me from that. But the fact that you were younger than me, and well, at this moment, your voice didn't matter. So I just had to go with the flow. But I'm still grateful that one of my siblings actually spoke up. Even though her voice was squashed, I'm actually grateful that she spoke up, and she spoke up for me. Yeah.
All right. We come from a family that is somewhat a bit traditional, you know, and you know, tradition, culture. Do you think these two have had, you know, have contributed to early marriages and well, not so much of teenage pregnancies, but early marriages?
Yes, and like I said, first myself, tradition. When we look at my situation, what they practiced there was that ukutakata, ukufuitira, you know. So this is where somebody gets pregnant, or somebody, a daughter, a girl, maybe spends more time than she should have from a home. Maybe she spends the night out, or if she had curfew, came back, she's supposed to be in the house at 17, comes back at maybe 19. This is something that's very, very common in Tongaland, in the southern part, you know. So they'll just take you to the guy and say, Pop, or what? You know, you get married. So this wasn't even about tribe. This was just tradition. This was tualam fuita. They leave me there, and then after I deliver is when now they'll start the proper marriage procedures. But you've already taken me there, so by then I'm supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to accept that I'm married. And throughout my marriage, I never really accepted that I was married. I never, like, never. I still don't. So tradition played a part there. Tradition played a part in the form of someone who's supposed to be from my father's side to come and speak over my life, because Nivana saying she's the male father, but they don't know me. You haven't sat me down. Why are you doing this? Why are you going out there? Why are you trying to be so rebellious? You know, you haven't spoken to your child. Why, if in the case where your child is rebellious, you think the child is rebellious, try sitting and talking to them, you know. In a case where you, as the mom, want lobola, and you want to sell your child off, because that's what happens. Like I said, we've lived in Wakula, and that was the basic thing there. They want, maybe the father or the mom want the lobola, they want in salam, so maybe they can buy new nets, or there's too many kids, the oldest has to leave. You know, poverty and tradition sometimes intertwined. Yes, so there's too many kids, and then they'll say, "Na kuloy, afuila mapo," you know, and then they'll basically marry off their child, and that would shock me. Why? Because the father needs new nets. Why? Because the mother needs to go and buy in Boko to come and sell, you know, and you're robbing this child of their childhood. You're robbing them of so much joy. You're turning them into an adult before their time, you know. Yeah.
All right. Now, in 2015, a report by World Vision placed Zambia at 16 in the whole world, 16 amongst the countries that have the highest rates of child marriage, with 42% of women that are married between 20 and 24.
Having been married.
Having been married by 18 or before
the age of 18.
18.
Yeah.
What places us there? What do you think? We in Zambia, we've seen what's happening, but what places us there? What are we doing wrong?
I think it's poverty, because most of these women are from the rural areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've had people come up to me and tell me that, well, they grew up in the urban areas, but they still come up to me and say, I think I was married off really young. I think I was married off really young. And then they share your story, and then you tell them, yes, you were actually married off young, you know? So, well, most people get married because they got pregnant, I think. That's one of the things I've seen around. Someone gets pregnant, let the man marry her, let the boy marry her. Why? Have you asked them if they want to get married? Have you asked them if that was just a mistake they can't repeat? Or is it because you feel, I will say this, just because a child is having sex does not mean they're an adult. No.
I love that.
Just because a child is doing adult things does not mean they're an adult. In here, they are not. So, do you feel because they had the audacity to get pregnant, they can still have the courage to brave a whole marriage? No. Children are children, you know. And I really get upset when people say, but the age of consent is 16. That is a child. How are you even okay saying that? It's a child, you know? How are you okay seeing someone date a 16-year-old and you think, well, the age of consent? No, you know, pedophile behavior.
Now, one of the determinants of child marriage is vulnerability, you know, of the girl child. You know, is that something that you've experienced, you know, personally?
Yes. So, like I said, one of the reasons why I went there and fell into this was the person was older than me, and they found me at a very vulnerable point. I was trying to find myself. I was trying to figure out who I am. I was facing backlash over something that had just recently come up, and I really didn't know who I was. I was a child. I needed affirmation. I needed validation, and they found me at a very, very vulnerable point. And they offered what seemed as, well, love. And this is why I said, buy your children Hungry Lion, buy your children Maheo, buy your children drinks, love your children, hug them. Most people out there are not hugged or touched enough. So the moment a child is just hugged and told I love you by a stranger, they start thinking this is real love, because they've never encountered that at home. Can you hug your children, touch your children in appropriate ways, that is? So anyway, so this person finds me and I'm at a vulnerable point, and I figured that was love, you know? Mm-hmm. And then I fell into this trap, and they were way much older than I was. Much, much older. Mm-hmm. They should have been the adult. They should have known that, well. But I guess there's some people who actually say, I'm fine, you know, because they know they can manipulate you very, very well. So I fall into this trap, and then even when there were red signs around this person, I'm still taken to him and left with him for the duration that I lived with him. Yeah. So he really did find me vulnerable. So kids will be vulnerable. Lack of information also can cause vulnerability.
All right.
Yeah.
And we have three main effects of early marriage, child marriage, and one of them is health risks, and another is risk of increasing the poverty instead of reducing it. It actually increases it, and the third is risk of violence. Which one of these applies to your situation?
I think all of them.
How?
So health risks. I was a child. I get pregnant. I'm not ready for labor pains. Mm-hmm. I'm not ready for the dynamics that will happen on my body.
Like, I saw you at your slimmest, at your thinnest.
Yes. So
you were thin.
I was married.
Yes, you were.
Oh, I was. People that meet me now, that knew me back then, go like, "Oh, Waina." Yes, Naina. I'm happy now. So anyway, I wasn't ready for what was going to happen to my body. So even when I went to this is something that should be taken into consideration. Like even when you go for antenatal as a teenager, you feel some type of way because you're getting there, and then I don't know if this has changed now. You get in there, and then people will be like, become fun. You know how Zambians just feel the need to talk about somebody without
give their opinion.
Yes, without being asked. They feel so entitled. So anyway, become fun. These days, you know, I got all that. So my first antenatal visit went like that, and then eventually, well, I would just try to sneak into the shadows, be first, get to the clinic first, so that I could be attended quickly, and I would leave, you know. And then Labor Day comes, and I could not believe what was happening to my body, you know. And this went on. I think the only time I was okay, this is happening, I'm in labor, was maybe the third pregnancy. Yeah, so because even my second pregnancy, I was very quiet. I had the child in the home, in the house, in my mom's house, because I could feel that it had begun, but I did not want to go to the hospital and face nurses who would tell me I was young and whatever. So I just kept quiet. I kept silent until it was like 21. And by the time they had to go look for a cab, I knew I was very close. So I ended up having the child in my mom's room.
That's health. Then increasing
Yes.
poverty?
Increasing poverty. Here I was unemployed, just bearing children, you know? I was just bearing children, and then, bringing more mouths to feed, if you ask me. And I still, even up to now, I still think about it like, look, even when I had the grandchild, I'm thinking, okay, this is another mouth to feed. She's a grandchild, yes, but this is another mouth to feed, you know? More taxing on my whatever money that I have, you know, whatever income I have. Like, these are more bills. Yeah.
That's increasing poverty. And the last one, you post a lot about this. You talk a lot about this, you know, violence, the risk of violence in early marriages.
Yeah. So somewhere there it says young children or teenagers are at risk of facing more violence in these marriages, early marriages, and it's true. Because I don't hide about how I was in a very, very abusive marriage with that man. And like I said earlier, the age gap was quite big. So he knew that I was a child and he could manipulate me and he could do anything. And the worst part about my type of marriage was, since you were brought here, you can't go back. So he knew that, and he had the upper hand. And teenagers will go through that. They can't defend themselves. Some are slight, like in stature. Some don't know that this shouldn't be happening to them. Like I said, lack of information earlier. So they don't know. All they know is they're married. They're not prepared for marriage. They're married.
Some develop unknowingly Stockholm syndrome, where
where they feel this is love.
This is love. If he doesn't beat you, he doesn't love you. I've heard that statement before.
This is something that back then, even the Ifimbusa, what are they called?
The traditional counselors.
Yes, the married mentors or whatever. It's something they would say. They would tell you, if a man is jealous of you, they will hit you. And if they hit you, it's because they're jealous. And if they're jealous, it means they love you.
They love you.
No. Like, no. Hell no. You know? So, kids who are married off early will grow up thinking like that, and they'll stay in these toxic marriages. Most are not empowered. It's sad. It's sad. There's a night I was at China clinic. I was there with our sister. She was not feeling well. And then throughout the 2 hours we were there, I think I saw like 3 women coming, battered, bruised, all by their partners, their husbands or whatever. And then the women there were saying, "Oh, you think this is a surprise? It's not shocking. Usually the whole night, women coming in and out, you know, after having been, and these women go back."
They do. I remember just a few months ago, I was having my retouch and I sat in a hair salon, and there was this woman. This man actually came up and was very violent, dressed smartly. You would think this is a normal man, you know. Came up, was very violent with this beautiful woman who was also getting a retouch, and he left her there. Got the keys and left her there. I asked her saying, "Does he hit you?" And She says, yeah, this was even better, you know. And I said, but you need to report him. There were 3 other women in the salon who stood up against me and says, you have no idea what marriage is all about. This is what marriage is. This is what love is. And I realized this is a common thing, you know, that's amongst us as Zambians. If a man hits you, he loves you, you know. And that, I'm sorry, is Stockholm Syndrome. That is mediocrity right there at its very best. And I was shocked. I was attacked for saying you need to report him if he hits you, you know.
And do you know why there's a lot of Stockholm syndrome? It's because this information is not there. People don't have access to this information. They've grown up in settings where most of them, back in the day, in our mother's days, in our grandmother's days, it was quick and you know, you stick it out for the kids. Then now the thing that I keep on seeing is all men are the same. How many will you leave? How many men will you at the expense of your physical and mental health? Really, no.
We have a couple of comments here. Fungai Jones says watching. Matilda Mawaloka says so caught up that I'm forgetting to comment or react with emojis. And promoting violence, shocked face emoji. And she says this is not what marriage should be, but I don't think this is a Zambian thing alone. Linda Perry says I really wish this could go viral so everyone could watch. The world would be a better place more. All right, and yeah, those are some of the messages that we have. Lois Yui, thanks so much for letting us know that you're watching, and says the set looks good. Angela Moza says following. Also, I love the fedoras. And
thank you.
Katerina says good morning, following from the recovery ward. All right, and Daisy Nguni says I was also Takatila. That tradition sucks. Worst experience ever. Matilda says parents should be involved in this discussion. Older or other relatives can chip in, but parents should be most involved. And Jahi says lovely. Priska Mwela says following. Glory Sampa says this is great. And Lois Yui says tuned in.
Okay, so the timekeeper is busy doing this, but maybe I could ask. Could I ask for like 10 minutes? So I had spoken about how I would. That was my view as a teenager that got pregnant and that was married off. I don't know. Maybe one day I'll talk about how really abusive that marriage was, so that people should know why at this point I do not allow anyone to talk over me. I do not allow anyone to put me down. I don't allow people to bully me, because first of all, like I said on the first episode, I was a child that was confused by being sexually abused, molested and whatever. My childhood was taken away. My teenagehood stuck in a very toxic, abusive marriage. My teenagehood was taken away. You will not talk over me as an adult.
I witnessed some
that
of
is a
that.
lie.
I witnessed some of that abuse.
Yes.
I remember the times I would, you know,
Try to
just
pull him off me.
and when I fail, I just get the child off the bed and leave the house. And
that for me was one of my. For me, that was another type of betrayal.
for me,
yes, you and moms, because there's a point when I was really stuck in this toxic marriage, and I would try to run away so many times, and he would come back. I was only allowed maybe a night or two to spend at my mom's or whichever relative I had picked on. And then he would come, and he was really sweet with words, like he was the perfect angel when talking to my mom.
most manipulators are.
Yes, and because I'm always the talkative one, people always think I'm wrong. To this day, people always think I'm the wrong one in a relationship because I'm very expressive. So he would come, and then he would take me back, and he would show me that I had nowhere to go, nowhere. You know, I couldn't do jack because, well, I was married. So for me, the betrayal came in when the beatings really got worse, really worse. And at this point, Mom says, you know what, bring Selena. This is like my second child, and by then she was like only 9 months. Why? Then she says, no, we need to protect the child. So now, there she is living with my oldest child. There she is getting my second child. And there I am, her child, stuck in this toxic marriage. And for me, it was betrayal. I was like, but I'm your child. These are my children. They're an extension. I'm your child. I'm the one you should protect, you know? So even when you would come and get the child and leave, I'm grateful now because I know so much about mental health and everything. You were protecting a child from seeing things, feeling things that they should not at that age. But for me, it was like, look, my brother, beat him or something, because by then you were a young man. If you and I gang up, we could probably do something, you know. But then, yeah, that's it. Now, I
Might I mention though that I was under your care, you know, at that point. I'm beating
I know of families that gang up on an abusive
beating my
man.
host was not really.
Money.
No, I was under your care, and in his care, you know.
Okay.
I was there
I
with you
understand.
guys.
Like I said, now I understand. Now I'll take it to the point where now I'm a grandma at this my youthful fine age. What happened to me kind of happened to my daughter, and then I had no idea she was pregnant. I had no idea I was going to be a grandma. I wasn't expecting it, and then I just get a call one morning, and then I'm asked if I'm sitting down, and then I started thinking, what would make me faint right now? Have the kids been in an accident or something? And then I'm told no. Then I asked, well, what's next on the list? So I thought, is this girl pregnant? And then I'm told yes. And that for me was very shocking. Like, okay, this is how I'm being told. Okay. And she was on her way to Lusaka. So she gets there, and I'm upset because this is my first child. This is a child that I had so much hope for. This is a child that, even though they didn't grow up with me, I thought, well, you've seen, I've told you, because I tell my kids everything, the real truth. I do not sugarcoat stuff when I'm talking to my kids. I tell them this is life, and this is how life goes. If you want to do this, or if you want to do, it's life. So now she gets there, and I'm really, really angry, and I'm looking at her, and I could see the baby bump, and well, disappointment. I think that was heartbreaking as a mom. And then in my head, because I'm a very free thinker, I said, okay, so if she's 3 months pregnant, the first thing I'm going to do is have her, I'm going to take her for a safe abortion. And then I sat down, I thought about it, and I told the person who had been her guardian, I said, I'm just going to take her for an abortion. Like, I know what early pregnancy does to people. It will completely change the direction of your life. So when I asked her, she says, this is how I say children are children, not just because they're doing things, then you think they're adults. So I asked her, how long gone are you? And then she says, 6 months. Woo! My heart plummeted to my feet. I was like, no safe abortion now. I took her to antenatal, her first antenatal. I actually went with her. I sat with her, and then at some point, because my hair was short, I think I can't remember anyway. So at some point, some nurse thought I was a guy. And then she said, "Ah, so I was like, excuse me, I'm her mom." Because I was wearing my usual shorts, t-shirt, and slides. And I said, no, I'm her mom. And then she goes, oh, cool, just. I said, no, I brought her because she's a child. She's just come to Lusaka, she's new, and whatever. And the nurses were like really nice. They said, okay, we'll take care of her. But I said, no, it's fine, I'll wait till it's done. So I sat with her. We went early in the morning. You know, government antenatal, you have to be there, 6. Then we left around 12, I think 11. And then she was only 4 months pregnant. So now this was my journey now to becoming a grandma. I didn't accept it there and then. I'm saying this for the person that I was talking to yesterday who is going through accepting that she's a grandmother even though the child is quite old. And how people talk about her being a grandma because her child got pregnant when she was really, really young. Like, there's no shame. Nafichitka. And then so it wasn't like a one-day thing. I started accepting it. There are days when I would be really angry at her, and there are days when I'd be loving. And I showed her that I didn't want her to go through what I had gone through. The call out there was, we need to take her to the guy. And I said, no, I went through that. My child is not going to go through that. Children should not be married off because they are pregnant. Children should not, boy children should not be given the responsibility because they got somebody else pregnant. Can you sit down, take children to counseling even, because this is a huge thing. You know, what's going to happen to the children? What's going to happen to the mental health? Are they going to be great parents? These are children raising children. And till now, I say I'm still growing with my kids. My children call me childish sometimes, and I say, yes, I had you in as a child. Let's be childish together, you know? I'm growing with you guys. So I refused. I totally refused. I said, if I have to keep my grandchild, I'm going to keep my grandchild. And we began this journey of me becoming a grandma, and, well, here we are. I've also thought about how, this is again for the lady yesterday, you do not, it depends anyway, but I don't think grandchildren should be raised as an extension of you, like your child, because what's going to happen when your grandchild grows up and they find out that you're actually not the mom? Mental health. They're going to start thinking, why was I lied to? Also think of the other children. Are the other children being deprived of their love from you as their mom or as their dad? What's happening? There are so many factors, so many factors, but I decided to accept it. It had happened, and well, here we are, a very cool grandma. Yeah, and I think for my daughter it was a relief because she really didn't know what I would do. She didn't know how I would take it. But the fact that I could just, okay, now I realize why grandmas want to take care of their grandchildren, because at that moment they realize you're a child. You want to take as great care of the child as they can. So even for me, it's like, even when I'm like, we'll do it, like you're a child.
Have your experiences, with teenage pregnancy and early marriage made you, a better parent?
I think so.
How?
At this point, what I do is, if my child wants to do something that back in the day was thought as, maybe I want to be wayward or rebellious, or, I'll start thinking, what would I have preferred? Would I have preferred some trust? Would I have preferred some... Because I remember one incident where we lived in the farms, so I did have friends. And then walking home from, I don't know, from the temple or something, I met a friend of mine from, because I was at Osaka Girls, he was at Osaka Boys. So I met a friend, Kevin, getting off the bus. And I was like, you live here? So I said, yeah, we recently moved here, the new farms. So I was so happy. And then I said, come, let's go see where I stay. You meet my mom, And we get home, and then I'm with this boy, and I'm really, really just happy because a friend, And then he was given the coldest stare. Coldest stare. And I said, hi, mom, and she didn't respond.
The mom stare. Our mom has a stare. Our mom has a stare.
And she didn't respond because for her at that moment, she's playing with boys. But for me, in that moment, it was a friend. I have found a friend. So even for my kids, they have these friends who are boys, and they're allowed to come over, sit in the yard, chat, talk about school, talk about art, talk about whatever, And I told these boys, because in the beginning they would come, get to the gate and say, is your mom around? Because apparently I look thug. And then one time I said, come here. And then I told them, why are you always afraid of coming in here? And then they said, no, Kylie, in some homes, boys are not. So I said, no. If you're coming here as my kids' friends, you're okay. It's okay. It's only when you come with bad intentions that you will not be welcome. But if you're coming here as their friends, as their classmates, and you want to talk about art, and you want to be teenagers, and I don't know, climb trees or God knows what teenagers do these days, it's okay. And they were very shocked. So they come over, they can watch a movie together. The kids come and ask me, can we escort, halfway or something? Go.
All right.
Because at this point, I'm trying to instill trust in them. Yeah, I feel like a child who's trusted will strive as much as possible not to disappoint the parent.
As we wrap up, we can safely say you've created a safe place for your children, and that's one of the things that's needed to curb teenage pregnancy and child marriage. That's one of the things that's needed to do. But what other things should we do as a country? What should we do?
SRHR. We should focus a lot on that. This information needs to go out there. Can you stop focusing on people's orientations and focus on how it's going to help your child learn their body, learn their rights, learn about... Because at the end of the day, I worked with a woman who, every time her child would turn, is it 14 or 16, she would take them to the nearest health facility and have them give her a jab or, the implant. At that point, when she was telling us, some people were like, no, you're promoting promiscuity. And then she said, no, these are girl children. And I leave the house before 6. I get there after 6. I don't know what they're doing. I would rather my kids are, if it's practicing safe sex or if they're not getting pregnant. For her, it was they're not getting pregnant. Sinifuna mzuku. And this was the woman who worked as the help for our boss. And I understood. Because really, like we said, poverty. You are trying to make ends meet, and then people start bringing little people for you to keep. What happens next? You can't fight poverty. So at least she had part of the information. Talk to your children about contraceptives. Talk to your children about safe sex. Talk to your boy children about condoms. The use of condoms. I know it sounds like a taboo, but believe me, more children are having sex out there than you know. Children in your own homes, they're having sex. And you do not know. So, yeah.
All right, to the parent whose child, is pregnant, teenage child is pregnant, and to the teenage girl who's fallen into this situation, what's your advice as someone who's gone through it?
Teenage girl, well, this was a bump in your journey. Like it's a bump. But they need to focus. What are you going to do after you have the baby? Are you going to try to put your life on track? Go to school. If you were going to school, go to school. If you had to go to college, go to college. If none of those, try to find a way, be an entrepreneur, try to find a way to support your child. Because at the end of the day, the world will look at you as a mother and as an adult. Try to find a way to support your mom or your guardian and your child. It's not something that you won't walk out of the house and it will be written on your face that you're a teenage mom. And it's not something to be ashamed of. It's happened, really. Own it. But try to focus, try to better your life after that. The mom, not all children should be married. I think you need to really check these people that you want to take your children to. Pregnancy doesn't mean you should marry your child off. Pregnancy doesn't have to end up in marriage. You can keep the child. You can keep her and her child. If it's the boy, maybe try to liaise with the family. Yes, they say boy children get away with it,
Mm-hmm.
But I think they also get some psychological, bump up there. You're a young boy, now you're a father. What do you do? We didn't really focus on the boys. What happens when you're a young father? What is expected of you? Are you able to do these things? Yeah.
Speaking of psychological, issues and challenges for someone who's been affected, young girls especially, and they want someone to talk to. Are you someone they can talk to? If not, who can they talk to? Where can they go?
Well, like I said on the other, people are free to reach out to me and to talk to me all the time. But when I say all the time, I don't mean at midnight. But you can reach out to me. You can talk to me. I think I talk very well with people. If not, I can refer them to other people, especially if they need really, really professional help, like up there, the therapists, the psychologists. I can refer them to that, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, teenage pregnancies and early marriage. We'll be having more topics like these for the next, how many remaining now? 10?
Mm-hmm.
10 episodes and a lot more. And expect great interviews and guests even in season 2, right, which will be reloaded. So, but for now, conclusion?
Thank you for my bottle, Elena and Malivase.
We're back next Saturday, same time, same place. That's Boldcast, and we come live at 10 hours on the Boldcast page. Share, like, and follow our YouTube channel as well. That's Boldcast Zambia, and Boldcast Zambia on SoundCloud as well. It'll be uploaded very, very soon. From me, this is goodbye.
Thank you. Catch you next week.